Hi everyone, my name is... Well, honestly, I can't tell you what my name is. The thing is, I recently received a huge inheritance, and now I'm hiding. I'm hiding because I didn't get it the right way. I'll start from the beginning. Every day I went to a job that I didn't like, sitting in an office, shredding paperwork, answering phones. After work, I'd go out with a guy I didn't even like. He'd sit across the desk and tell me silly stories, and I pretended to be interested. Every day I was starting to lose my mind. And then one night, while I was asleep, my cell phone rang. Still half asleep, I could hardly take the call. Hello?
Good evening. We are disturbing you as you are a relative of Oscar Smith.
Uncle Oscar? Is he...
Yes, Mr. Smith has left us. The farewell ceremony will take place today. The reading of his will will be tomorrow at his mansion.
Sleep has been taken away. I'll be there. I hung up and didn't sleep a wink that night. In the morning, I went to see my relatives. Uncle Oscar lived in a huge mansion. He loved luxury, I must admit. The golden automatic gates opened. I was greeted at the entrance and escorted into an office. Some of the people I'd never seen before in my life, and they were my kin. They all wanted a piece of the rich uncle's fortune. I made myself comfortable in a corner, trying not to attract attention. The notary put on his glasses and began to read out the will.
I leave the cars to my daughter, the estate to my wife.
At this point, the uncle's daughter became indignant. What about the money? I want the money! The notary cleared his throat and continued.
And all my accumulated savings, namely $97,564.75, will go to the next of kin who dies first.
The daughter swallowed nervously. And I guess that's enough cars. Someone in the audience asked a logical question. Why would a dead man need money? The notary answered,
The money, after your death, will go to your loved ones.
At this point, the procedure was over and everyone left. I got in my car and went home. Back at home, I crawled into bed and dreamed about what I could do with the money. For example, I could fill a swimming pool with it and swim in it, or build a little town and name it after myself. However, the inheritance wasn't mine yet, and it was time to get back to the boring office. I couldn't get through the day at work. I kept thinking about the millions. Finally, my boss came up to me and yelled at me for not doing a good job. With every word she said, my anger boiled. I had been accumulating all these years. I couldn't contain my emotions, so I grabbed the trash bin, flipped it over, and put it on my boss's head. Then I turned around and walked away. I don't think my boss understood what happened. I was tired of this life, and it was about time I started a new one. A traditional date with Steve didn't work out either. Instead of listening to his idiotic stories, I took my glass and threw it in his face. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Don't call me again. Steve was shocked, but I was happy because I had a brilliant plan in my head, and I knew that soon I would die and be rich. True, it required one phone call. A week later, I made my own will. I sealed it in an envelope. I lay down on the floor and closed my eyes. So I tried on what position I was going to lie down in when they found me. At first, I decided to stick my tongue out like in the movies, but then I decided that was stupid. So I got up, picked up the phone, and dialed 911. Hello? I need help right away. The address is... I took the vial out of the drawer, held my breath, and drank it all down, emptying it to the last drop. Then I lay on the floor, assuming the familiar pose, and began to count. The doctors were coming up the floor. Standing at my door, at first they pounded on it frantically. Then someone knocked it off with a foot, and that was the last thing I heard before I blacked out. When I woke up, it was dark. I started groping around, and very soon I realized my plan had worked. I was in a coffin, and there were millions of dollars. All of my uncle's inheritance, just as I had asked for in my will, went into eternity with me. Through the walls of the coffin, I could hear voices. Apparently, I came to my senses at the end of the farewell ceremony. I can imagine how they were all biting their elbows with envy. I tried to be as quiet as possible. Somewhere under the pile of money, I fumbled for an oxygen tank. What would you do without it? I did not want to die for real, so I prepared. And in a coffin, oxygen for only a couple of hours. Soon I was carried outside. I was rocking from side to side for about an hour. I must have been riding in a hearse. I almost threw up from the rocking, but I restrained myself as best I could. My temporary abode was just about to sink into the ground. I didn't think I was really going to be buried. What am I supposed to do? Come on, I'm kidding. It's all taken care of. I just have to wait a little while. It was really creepy, though. I knew I was in a box under 4 feet. It's been about an hour, or maybe 2. I lost track of time. Everyone should be gone by now. Come on, where are you? Here's where I really got scared. What if he didn't do what I asked? I felt sick because I was so nervous, so I grabbed my oxygen. I wanted to take a few sips, but the tank was empty. Oh my God! I don't want to die for real. In a panic, I started pounding on the lid of the coffin, and then I heard a shovel hitting it. A few moments later, the coffin opened, and a hand was extended to me. I hurriedly jumped out. It was night and the moon was shining. I had also considered this, stating that I wanted to be buried late in the evening. I didn't need any witnesses. I caught my breath and smiled at the man who had helped me out of the grave. It was the notary who was reading Uncle Oscar's will. It was to him that I had made that very call a week earlier, but I didn't hold out much hope for his approval. Still, money makes wonders come true. How'd it go? I didn't forget anything? No, well done. Sleeping pills, oxygen, money in bags, evening funeral. In that case, I'm waiting for my half. I frowned. I didn't want to part with the money at all. A half is a lot. I still have to pay the doctor who pronounced you dead. There didn't seem to be any other way. All right, take half. After taking his money, the notary left in a hurry. He had one more errand to run, but I was sure that everything would be done as agreed. Suddenly, I heard a piercing scream. I, Dirty, standing beside a ruined grave, was seen by the local caretaker. He shouted, "Zombie! Help me! Zombie!" and rushed off into the darkness as fast as he could. I laughed and pulled another bag of money out of the hole. When all the money was saved, I took a shovel and buried the grave so no one would notice anything suspicious. One by one, I threw the bags over the fence, and then I climbed over myself. I looked at my watch. At exactly midnight, a car pulled up in the driveway. The driver opened the trunk, and I put my millions in it. It was done. The driver dropped me off near the hotel, willingly accepted a couple of dozen bills, and drove off without asking too many questions. The same amount of bills made the porter forget about the strange girl, covered with earth, dragging several huge bags behind her. Already in the room, I went into the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Taking the scissors in my hands, I said, "Goodbye, past me. I won't miss you." I cut my long hair and dyed it in a different color. To be honest, I liked it way better that way. Quickly solving the moving issues, the very next day I left for another city, closer to the ocean. About 6 months passed. I lived near the ocean and swam in it almost every morning. In the evenings, I hung out in clubs and danced. I liked that kind of life. But one day when I came home, I found a note under the door. Glued on a piece of paper were letters cut from a newspaper. "I know what you did." My heart immediately went in my heels. Who could this be? The notary? Of course he knows what I did, but he got a huge sum for it and would hardly decide to blackmail me. Some relative? They just can't know anything. Our plan was executed perfectly. I got worried, but for now I decided not to do anything. Maybe this note was just a stupid joke. But the next night I realized there was nothing to laugh about. I found another envelope in the same place, in which I found a photo. It showed me taking bags out of my grave. Oh no! Someone had seen me and even took a picture. In the envelope was another note. "You must bring money to this address." I had nothing to do, and having thrown the rest of the money into the bag, I went to meet the blackmailer. I arrived at the indicated address. In front of me was a 2-story abandoned building. I went inside and went up to the 2nd floor. The darkness of the room was barely lit by a dim lamp. I heard a voice that sounded familiar to me. "Bag on the table." "Take it. Just promise not to say anything." A hooded figure stepped out of the darkness towards me. Frightened, I took a step back. "Stay away from me." And then the stranger took off his hood and said cheerfully, "It's me, Steve." To say I was shocked is an understatement. I demanded an explanation. Steve began his story. He was really upset when I blew him off at the cafe. Soon he heard about my death. He wanted to say goodbye to me, but he was too embarrassed to show his face among other relatives and acquaintances, so he waited until everyone had gone. But when Steve came to the grave, he suddenly saw a living dead person, and in the darkness, I thought it was the keeper. Shocked, Steve rushed to run, but he pulled himself together on time. There's no such thing as zombies, but there were plenty of crooks. The guy quickly realized what was going on. He came back, followed me, and took a picture to demand an explanation. But there was no one to demand it from. The next day, I was long gone. Steve looked for me for a long time, but to no avail. It just so happened that he was on a vacation in the very town where I was hiding and happened to see me on the beach. Why did you demand to bring money? I resented. Steve shrugged his shoulders. How else could I have made you come here? I nodded. He was right. Why did you look for me in the first place? Steve hesitated to answer. Then he said uncertainly, because I like you. I took a deep breath. You wasted your time looking for me. I grabbed my bag of money and headed for the exit. But Steve was very upset, and I couldn't leave him like that. After all, he was trying so hard to find me. All right, Steve. If you promise not to tell anyone what you found out, I'll have dinner with you. And then? Then I'll disappear. Steve didn't like it, but he agreed. The next night we met at the cafe. This time, he didn't talk much. We were silent mostly, and it was our best date ever. The next morning, I left for the airport. I'll have to change my appearance, my name, and my city again, but I'm sure that one day I'll find a place I can call home. What are you willing to do for money? Write your answers in the comments below the video. Like and subscribe to our channel.